Good. Um, back at it, and feels like we haven't played a game in a long time. Hopefully that both of us can get to Colorado Springs and be there and be safe and be able to play. Unlike a lot of teams right now in the Mountain West, just watching New Mexico on film at first. I mean, you sit there and I just commend Coach Weir and his staff and his players just for what they've had to go through just to play. I mean, there's been no team in the country that's had to deal with what they've been dealing with all year long, and for them to just to continue to play, which people don't realize how hard it is. I mean, it's hard when we're sleeping in our own bed, playing in our own gym, practicing our own gym. I can only imagine when you're having to be at somebody else's gym, having to live out of a hotel, having to eat food out of boxes all the time. I mean, it's just, it's a credit to him and his staff for keeping these guys going. Because when you watch them on film, I mean, they, you can tell that they're together. You can tell that they're picking each other up. I mean, there's not a lot of complaining or whining. I mean, you just see a group of guys that have been through a lot, and even though their record says maybe they're not a good team. I mean, we know as coaches, I mean, it's a fine line. And for us, I mean, we're not good enough to think that we can just show up and beat anybody. And my guarantee is that New Mexico's looking at us as, 2 games that they can possibly win. And so we have to go in with the right mindset, understand what they do well, which is first and foremost, keep them off the offensive glass. But, they're just, like I said, they're a tough matchup. I mean, who knows what we'll see from a defensive standpoint. I mean, play a number of different defenses, but at the end of the day, you just got to go out there and just take what they give you and see what you can do. But it's going to be a tough test. I said people are going to look at the record and think, oh, well, we should go in there and win. It's not the mentality that we have. I mean, especially after you've lost 4 games in a row. I mean, for us, I mean, we're not talented enough to think that we can just show up. And when you see New Mexico on film, you see their size, their length, their athleticism, they're going to present some challenges to us. And so we got to be ready to go out and compete and see what happens. Davis.
I was going to say, obviously, I think the last time we talked to you, you got the news like 5 minutes before you were set to start with us, the Utah State situation. How did the team take that, and what did you guys kind of do over the last week? Did you do advanced game prep, or did you guys just kind of work on yourselves?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was one of those deals where we knew it was a possibility, but you just never know until you get the call. But for us, I said, it's been such a long season, more so mentally, and so for our guys to, give them a day off, like a real day off, and not where you're going to, where you're actually lifting, or no, where they actually had a couple just days off. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to keep these guys fresh under the current situation. And then, really focusing more on us now the last day or so, a little bit on New Mexico, but where New Mexico is going to beat you. I mean, it's not about tricky plays or whatnot. I mean, it's about when that shot goes up. I mean, you better be ready to go rebound, and then you better be able to get back in transition. And so the game doesn't start until that shot goes up, and hopefully our guys, they're going to really realize, they know that, it's just a matter of whether or not they can go do it. So that's a big challenge that's going to present itself, and something that you can't simulate what they do really in practice, especially with the limited number of bodies we have, and we don't have the bodies that they have. I mean, like I said, they look like an NBA team, and you can't simulate how they're going to crash the offensive glass until they see it the first couple possessions, and then from there you're going to have to adjust. And then, I mean, your guess is as good as mine is what defense they're going to come out and play, whether they're going to play man and switch, whether they're going to play 2-3, whether they're going to play 1-3-1, whether they're going to play 2-2-1 back to a 2-3. I mean, who knows? They could throw in, the last 2 weeks since they haven't played. I mean, who knows what else they could throw in. So at the end of the day, I mean, you just can't overcomplicate it. You just got to play your principles and concepts and let the chips fall where they may. Davis.
Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Jeff, regardless of what the record ends up being, what do you want, or where do you expect this team to improve the most over this last month of the season, assuming you guys get all these games in?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of just having the mindset of just, trying to get better each day. I mean, it's not really about what the final outcome is or the final score. Obviously, you want it to, you want to win. But for us, I mean, it's just a matter of being able to have enough guys in practice to where we can play 5-on-5. We were actually able to get up and down a little bit this week, which is nice. And so for us, I mean, it's a matter of just continuing to develop habits and then trying to be able to have enough bodies now to where we can play and get up and down at practice to try to get in a little bit better just game shape. And that's where I think you really see with, some of these teams, a lot of teams, maybe a little bit some of the more experienced teams, you don't see the fatigue set in as quickly. But you watch a lot of these other teams. I mean, probably 70% of the teams. I mean, you could just tell that just the game conditioning is just not quite there. And for a lot of us, I mean, it just goes back to what you're trying to do. And really for us, I mean, you try to build your habits through competing every day. And when you're just trying to survive every day, which, Mexico is trying to survive a lot more than we are, but I mean, it's hard. But that's just what we're focusing on. It's just really more so us. And can we just continue to get these younger guys better? Cats.
You brought up a little bit earlier, but obviously New Mexico has gone through quite the gauntlet of off-court things with not being able to play at home and being on the road. I mean, as a coach, can you imagine living that sort of lifestyle the way they've done it?
Well, as I said, I mean, I commend Paul and the staff and his kids for what they've had to endure. I mean, I can only imagine, one, having to call my wife every single day, from a different location, whether that's in Lubbock, whether that's in St. George, Utah. I mean, just all the different places. Like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? It's like, where in the world is Paul Weir? And for that, like, I mean, I said, for them just to be doing what they're doing, it's quite remarkable. And I mean, for not to see your family, your kids, I mean, for them to have 4 months of not being around your family and your kids. I mean, I don't know how you really do it. I mean, it's just, in a lot of ways, it's not fair to them. And I'm sure they're probably being judged on this year, which I don't think is fair at all. It's based off the circumstances that they have. But that's the reality that they've lived. And I I commend them for what they've done, because, man, that is not easy. Jeff with the G.
Jeff with the J. How you doing? I don't know if this is just playing for really good teams or not, but just looking at stat sheets and having seen a couple of the games, Marcus seemed to probably have 4 of his more, I guess, pedestrian games the last 4 games, but against good opponents. Is that anything of a freshman wall? Is it just the opponents, or is there something more kind of going on there that you're either worried or not too worried about?
No, I mean, I just think he's seeing how hard it is to, when you're the focal point of the other team's scouting report, when you're the first guy on the first page and you're the leading scorer and you're the guy that kind of makes everything go. You're going to get the other team's probably best defender. You're going to get the other team's attention. And so with that, there comes a responsibility that you have to prepare yourself for that. And for him, I mean, being an 18-year-old freshman and a really young 18-year-old freshman, a lot of these things have hit him pretty quickly. And so for him, it's just kind of, he's learning while he goes. I mean, the Colorado State game, the last game, I mean, he came down with a stomach deal because of probably what he ate before the game, which, when you're 18, as I told him, 2 days before, I took a picture of him at Sonic at 8:00 at night after I was dropping my son off to basketball practice. And I said, dude, quit eating fast food. And lo and behold, I think he didn't listen to me, obviously. And which, when I was 18, I don't remember myself just deciding to go to, Chili's and have a salad with strawberries and whatnot on it. So, I mean, I'm just as guilty. But those are just some of the things that he's going to have to learn in order to kind of take that next step as a player and to be a legitimate, first team all league guy, to be a player of the year type of guy, which I think his talent is such. But it's just the maturation. And that's with our whole team. When you have, you're counting on freshmen in a league that, as you know, and I know, I mean, historically, young teams don't fare well in this league. I mean, you want to be old. And so, but I think it's a combination of things. But I think the biggest thing is just the fact that, he's getting the other team's best shot. And I think that's only going to help him as he makes his way. And as we make our way into the spring and summer into next year, it's just going to allow him to be a better player. Jeff.
What about flipping the scouting reports over and you're looking at UNM? There's two guys I want to ask about. One, frankly, I don't even know if he's going to play or not, but I'll start with him. Saquon Singleton is a guy who certainly doesn't have an outside shot. He's taken 4, I think, 3-pointers all year. I'm not spilling any, knowledge that you don't see on film. What problems does a guy like he present as just a driver? He creates his offense by creating contact. And then I want to ask you about McQuatch Malawatch after that. He's a 4-year guy who's just sort of quietly been around this league for a long time and now is probably the top of the offensive scouting report for most teams, I would think.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Saquon is he knows who he is. I mean, there's some guys that, they want to prove that they can shoot. And lo and behold, they just, all right, you just bait them into shooting one. And then the best thing that happens is if they make the first one and then they decide, all right, I'm a shooter tonight, or I'm going to prove to everybody that I am a shooter. I got to prove to the scouts. I got to prove to everybody that I can make shots. And then lo and behold, you just turn into a really bad player. And so in the case of Saquon, I mean, he knows who he is, with his size. I mean, I think that's what presents the biggest challenge for us is that, his size in terms of trying to match up, with his ability to, one, off the bounce, but two, his ability to post up. And so that's where, we got to do a good job of not just letting him get downhill. And just, because I said, if he's getting downhill, now, usually that's, off a ball screen. And now you're, the big's coming down and now you're in a bind, especially on the offensive glass. And so we're going to have to do a good job of trying to make him go east and west as much as possible and try to minimize his paint touches, which is going to be, a difficult task because guys like him who've been drivers their whole life. I mean, even when guys are playing 2, 3, 4 feet off them, they still know how to kind of make their way in. And that's the tough part is, how much space do you give him? Because sometimes you can give a guy like that too much space and now he's, he's right up underneath you and he's in the paint and now you're in trouble. And so that'll be a challenge. And then, our other, how do you pronounce his name exactly? I haven't been in the league long enough to pronounce that.
Yeah, McQuatch Malawatch.
Man, I'm just going to take your lead on that. But
call him Quatch.
Quatch. I mean, he's I said he's just a good player. I know the guys that have played against him in our program, they respect him. Guy that's going to play hard. Kind of a little bit unorthodox in terms of how he plays, but he's efficient, and he's a guy that can do it. He's one of those guys for them that can do it all 3 levels, and so that's going to be a challenge for us because at the end of the day, defensively, the defensive end's probably it's been our biggest challenge, this year. And so, and I know that, when you look at the stats, I mean, for, offense has been a challenge for them, but at the same time, he's a guy that, you can't let him go and attempt 9 threes in a game because he's a guy that's capable of going and making 4 or 5. And then you got to do a good job of understanding how they try to get the ball to him in ISO situations and trying to minimize his touches that way. And so, it'll be a collective effort. And I said their overall team size is probably what concerns me the most. I mean, when you sit there and you look at some of the lineups that they have, I mean, it's going to be not to say men versus boys, but I mean, our freshmen, their bodies don't quite look like some of those guys' bodies.